Well, to be honest with you, this particular generation, and Iran is sending its oldest squad ever. It's a very experienced squad. They've done most of them have played 3 or 4 World Cups already. This will be the fourth one. But quite rightly, as you say, these are superstar sports stars, athletes with that lifestyle that comes with it. But unfortunately, this national team has been very politicized from people outside, and that has impacted them in the past.
Hey, so welcome to a special edition of the Badlands podcast devoted entirely to the World Cup, which begins this week. This is an unprecedented World Cup, as we'll get into, with a team from a country that is technically at war with the other country that is hosting. There have been times when two teams that are very hostile to each other are playing in the same tournament. That's perfectly normal, but none when one of the teams that is hostile to the other team is actually hosting the tournament, and very few where the government in power in that host country is just one of the most vindictive and mean-spirited and abnormal governments in the world and in its own history. I'm Borzu Dergahi. This is the Badlands podcast. Thank you so much for watching. I think you'll really enjoy this show, even if you're not a football fan, and I'm not a diehard football fan. This week, the World Cup is kicking off with the group of 4 matches starting on Thursday, June 11th, and it would be remiss not to acknowledge that, and it would also be remiss not to acknowledge some of the dysfunctional things that are happening in this World Cup match. This news just broke on Tuesday that the Iranian team have been denied its allocation of tickets. They basically are supposed to get 8% of the tickets of every match they play to distribute to their fans. And the Americans just basically ordered FIFA, the International Football Federation, the Soccer Federation, to ignore that rule and just not give the tickets to the Iranian teams. It just seems to be like humiliation after humiliation. We're going to talk about that a little bit. You got to understand, this is not just any football match. It's the World Cup. It only happens once every 4 years. For Americans that don't understand how huge this is, it is a global event. It's not every team qualifies. Many teams have tried for years and years and years to qualify for the World Cup and very rarely do. And in the case of Iran, it was one of the earliest teams to qualify for this World Cup. They're really proud to play in this game, but it's been surrounded by politics and controversy from the start. Later on in the show, I'm going to play you an interview I did with Nima Tavallaei. He is a soccer football journalist in Sweden who covers the Iranian national team as well as focusing on Italian football. But first, I did an interview myself with India's NewsX World in which we spoke about this upcoming football match and what it means for both the United States and Iran.
Iran's national football team will only be allowed to enter the United States on the day of its World Cup matches and just leave the same day. The team has relocated its base to Tijuana after abandoning plans to train in Arizona amid continuing tensions between Washington and Tehran. How much of a competitive disadvantage could this create? And should FIFA intervene to ensure equal playing conditions for all teams? How damaging can this be for players going into one of the biggest tournaments of their life?
Well, I think it can be pretty damaging, but these guys are professionals. I'm not sure how damaging it will be, and I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not a personal trainer, but I know that these guys are used to flying into towns, wherever that may be, whether it's Dortmund or Milan or Tabriz, and playing a game and then going home at night. Maybe they appreciate that. So I'm not sure how much of an effect that will have. I'm sure they have to overcome some jet lag. They will do that in Tijuana. But I think, Ellie, the broader point is just the unacceptable antics of the United States at this point. We have to comment on this. You have not just the Iranian team, you have the Iraqi team being harassed, the top player for Iraq being detained for 7 hours at Chicago's O'Hare Airport. You have complaints from the African Sports Journalists Union that that their top journalists, their sports journalists have been denied visas. This is the consequence of just Donald Trump. I don't know what else to call it, but like this nasty regime in Washington, and the corruption of Gianni Infantino, the head of FIFA, who has basically acquiesced to this
abnormal and unacceptable attitude towards international sport. And people should stand up, and people have a right to speak out about this.
The 2026 World Cup is being promoted as a celebration of global unity. FIFA's president always makes a comment saying how this is just about football, etc., etc. What message does this arrangement send when one participating nation faces extraordinary travel and visa restrictions, being in a completely separate country? What should FIFA really do at this moment in time?
I think at this time they should basically, if they had any guts, they would basically cancel the event and say that the United States behavior is not proper. Short of doing that, they could move all games to Canada and Mexico. That has been suggested in the past, but he won't, because he's basically, you remember when he gave this peace award, this FIFA peace award to Donald Trump? He's got some kind of dealings with Donald Trump. These guys are buddy-buddy. They're like part of the Epstein class together or something. I'm not sure what it is, and I'm not going to make any allegations. What it shows more than anything, and you ask a good question, it's basically the abnormality and the dysfunction and the transgressions of the United States of America at this point. No other country would do this. China would never do this. Russia would never do this. It shows the immaturity and juvenility of this particular administration in Washington. That includes Donald Trump and his odious immigration czar, Stephen Miller.
Could these visa delays affecting members of Iran's support staff impacting performance? And does this raise concerns about how prepared the US has been as a host nation for politically sensitive teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really unfair to the teams. I think that the U.S. is a little bit worried maybe that Iran may advance to the second round of the games, which it has never done in the past before, but it's facing several weaker teams in the round of four. And if that happens, there is a concern in the U.S., this has been reported on, that the Iranians could face the United States in a match in the United States on July 3rd. And what, God forbid, the Americans are thinking would happen if the United States was defeated by Iran on July 3rd, the day before the 250th anniversary of the United States. So I think that there is a concern there, and that is maybe one of the reasons why the U.S. is resorting to these unsportsmanlike behaviors, these dysfunctional behaviors, these antics and juvenile histrionics. It's because they're a little bit afraid of the optics of facing Iran and losing just before the 250th anniversary of the United States.
And as geopolitical tensions increasingly spill into international sporting events, can FIFA realistically remain neutral, or must it play an active role in protecting teams from political disputes between governments?
Politics has always invaded sports to some extent, you know. And if you go back, and it's maybe interesting to note, before World War II, there was Jesse Owens went to Hitler's Germany and performed there and won gold, but he wasn't harassed by the Nazi security people. So I think that is going to be overlaying everything. There's these political things. There was the Olympics in which the U.S. and the Soviet Union were playing, and there was a lot of politics involved there. That's okay. What's not okay is the unsportsmanlike behavior and the attempts at basically cheating, these very lowbrow kind of gutter tactics that the Americans are using to harass teams from countries that they don't like, teams from shades of skin that maybe the current administration doesn't like. And that is really what is the difference now. It's not the politics, it's just the behavior of one particular government and only one particular government.
You have Iran and the United States. They're trading strikes on each other. Their allies are fighting each other. And meanwhile, in another part of the world, they're probably and possibly going to play football against each other in a World Cup match, potentially. That could happen. It's theoretical, but it could happen sometime in the next few weeks. And that is, to say the least, rather awkward. And I am joined today, because I am not a soccer or football guy, I am joined today by Nima Tavallaei. He is a soccer and football pundit based in Sweden. He is Iranian. He's an analyst of sports, especially soccer and football, focusing especially on the Iranian and Italian football leagues. And you may not know this, everyone knows about Italy, but Iran also has a really lively, really competitive, really active sort of sports scene, especially with football, especially soccer. And you have these teams, they are based in cities. There's two major teams in Tehran. They play against each other. They play against other cities. They play against Asian cities that are part of the Asian League. I'm not sure if they play against European teams. I know sometimes they play against Turkey in friendlies and so on. I'm based in Istanbul, and sometimes the national team plays everywhere. They'll play anywhere. And the Team Melli, as it's known in Iran, is beloved. It's controversial. There's as much talk about the politics and the coaching and the management of the football teams and the Team Melli in Iran as there would be like around the Knicks in New York City. And Nima, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for giving me your time and expertise. What I think is the most pressing question is this issue of the treatment of the Iranian team by the U.S. visa authorities. Is this going to be a hassle? And how big of a problem is it that the Americans are playing games, as it seems, with the visa process for Team Melli, Iranian national team, as well as the players less than members of the coaching staff and so on?
Well, first of all, thank you for the invite. It's good to be with you. It is a mess and it is a circus. It is an unprecedented circus, the likes of which we've never seen in World Cup history. But to go back to kind of contextualize this and try to be able to explain what is going on, we have to kind of go back to when this illegal war was thrust upon Iran in February, March. Around that time, the Iranian sports minister, Ahmad Donyamali, said that he doesn't think that Iran can can play in America during the World Cup. Obviously, the World Cup draw had already taken place. Iran is scheduled to play 2 games in Los Angeles and 1 game in Seattle. And so he said what he did, but what we have to understand is that FIFA demands that that the respective football associations, the FAs in every membership country, that they're independent from the government, because governments change, but the football associations have to stay the same, or they have to be independent rather. And so if a sports minister believes something, he can't impose that. If he did, Iran would be suspended by FIFA, and that applies to every country, not just Iran. And FIFA have been very hard on that. For example, when a scandal broke out recently in the Italian football involving referees, there was talk of the Italian Olympic Committee appointing a kind of interim president of the Italian FA, which would have been kind of a government appointment. And FIFA immediately and UEFA kind of said, no, you can't do that, because if you did, that would be a violation of certain structures in place. And so, that kind of fizzled out. But then, there was also going to be an Italian FA presidential election and so on. Just to give an idea, without going too deep into that matter, that it's a very fundamental part of FIFA structure and membership states that the national FAs, the football associations, are independent from the government. Sure. So even though the sports minister said that, that was taken very in a very strange way but was taken very strangely by some people in the Western media that Iran is not going to participate. No, he expressed an opinion as a representative of government days into. Well,
to be fair, it might not have been logistically possible to get the team together, to get the people at that moment when the war was raging and no one could predict where it could have gone. He might have just been
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it was also after the atrocity of Minab school, where they murdered 180 children. So it was a very, very strange time. The Iranian FA responded by saying that, if the government doesn't want us to go, they don't need to force us, they just need to ask us. Basically, they were all kind of positioning themselves.
Yeah.
Then Iran made it clear that they did not want to play their games in the United States. They wanted to play them in Mexico. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said she's more than happy to accommodate that wish. FIFA said that's not possible logistically to remove all these games. And so that's when it all kind of kicked off. Then fast forward to the FIFA Congress in Vancouver, where the Iranian delegation headed by Mehdi Taj, the Football Association president, who had a visitor's visa for this Congress. There was a big argument with the Canadian immigration, who at the behest of the Trump administration had started to kick up a fuss with them. The Iranian delegation was so offended, so angry, they turned around, flew back to Turkey. FIFA apologized, promised them to charter a plane to fly them back, to have them participate. They refused. Mehdi Taj goes out on Iranian TV and says, we have a list of 10 demands that have to be followed, including...
Let me stop you just for 1 second there, because I think that's an interesting question. Mehdi Taj has been described as like this IRGC, Revolutionary Guard intelligence operative. But then I'm trying to look at his service record, because, you know, a lot of people like and I looked at his age. It looks like he fought in the Iran-Iraq war, is what they're saying. Or is it more than that? Was he
Well, no. I mean, you know as well as I do that when in Iran, military service is mandatory.
And so what was he?
And then so if it's mandatory, it also means that you have to serve in one of the armed forces, right? And he served in the Iran-Iraq war, as he correctly said. I think he served in the IRGC, which was part of the national defense.
So is he some big, huge commander in the IRGC?
No,
okay.
Of course not. Absolutely
so why do people
not.
say that? Because I'm trying to look at, people usually who are IRGC big time commanders, they have a reputation, they give speeches and so on. But this guy, it looks like, by his age at least, it looks like he served in the Iran-Iraq war.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what it is. I mean, there are players in the Iranian national team right now who did their mandatory military service in one of the armed wings of the government, of the state, of which the IRGC is one. And so that doesn't make them commanders or anything of anything. So, but the problem is that when you unilaterally designate people and organizations you dislike as terrorist organizations, which is exactly what's happened here, then you put yourself into a corner. And that's what's happened with in this situation. And so he's not a commander of the IRGC any more than I am. So or you are, or anyone else listening to this is, I assume. So it's a nonsense. And so they kicked up a fuss. He got angry. He went back. FIFA apologized. He made this list of 10 demands. And the 10 demands are the most, this has never been an issue in any other World Cup ever. One of the demands was, we want our national anthem to be played, and it has to be heard properly in the stadium. We want the flag of our state to be waved and not flags of other states to be waved. We want the security of our players and staff to be guaranteed. And remember, this was after Donald Trump sent that tweet threatening the lives of the Iranian national team. We want to be able to we don't want any threats issued, physical or verbal, issued to our players. Let's remember, while the war was going on, the women's team was playing the Asian Cup in Australia, and we now know how they were rammed. The players' bus was rammed by one of these Pahlavi
people,
cultists, who were ramming the bus with flags and waving and attacking these women and harassing them all across the tournament. They went up to the players in the hotel lobbies and the stores. They completely harassed them. They wanted to, so all of these demands that they issued have always been followed by FIFA at any World Cup, from France 98 to Germany 2006, Russia, Qatar. This has never been an issue, right? So all of these demands were just basically follow your own
rules.
That's it. And so, and then the whole visa situation came, and Iran, So what happened was that Iran and FIFA, after this meeting with Matthias Grafström, who I think is the general secretary of FIFA, they had a meeting with Iran where Iran issued these demands, and they said, okay, we can sort this. We can, they agreed to all of them, and they said we can sort some of them, especially being that Iran moves their training camp to Tijuana in Mexico, where they will have closer to get to and also they're not have to stay all their time in the United States, which is a big problem for Iran and also for the Trump administration.
Why is it a problem to stay in Iran? I'm sorry. Why is it a problem to stay in the U.S. Why couldn't they stay in, Los Angeles area, for example?
Well, I mean, they were supposed to stay in Tucson, Arizona. That's where their training camp was booked. And the reason they didn't want to is because of the toxic diaspora that live in California, and also because of the threats issued by the President of the United States to the players and the staff.
So to be clear, this was a decision that the Iranian team itself took, that they don't want to be sleeping overnight in.
Yeah, as much as possible, minimize. They didn't even want to play in the United States, much less sleep there. But of course, the games couldn't be rescheduled or removed, changed venues. So they were like, okay, well, you can stay in Mexico. Mexico said, absolutely, that's fine. Tijuana has fantastic facilities. It's closer to get to the LA to play the games and so on and so forth. So there was, and then of course the United States came out and said that we didn't want them there. So it's this kind of childish, we don't want you here. And the response is, we never wanted to come to you in the first place. So it's, it depends on who you ask, but it was very clear that Iran didn't want to stay in the United States. The United States did not want the Iran team there. That's what we know. Then who did what and what did who? I mean, that's just, that's high school level of, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
In that, who did what first and whatnot. But what was clear is that they didn't want to have anything to do with one another.
Some members of the team, not players necessarily, but like technical support staff and so on, have not been issued visas. Apparently, this is a problem for other countries as well. Like some of the African teams, their photographers, official photographers, weren't given visas.
That was the Iraq. It wasn't a photographer from. It was actually Iraq's team photographer, who is a long-standing member of the Iraqi national team who was sent back and wasn't issued a visa.
Why?
He was granted a visa, but immigration didn't let him in.
Did they give a reason? Do we know?
No, not as far as I know, not right now. But when it comes to the Iranian one, I've got 14 names confirmed by various Iranian media. The first person on that list, Mehdi Taj, the president of the Iranian FA,
was not granted a visa.
Not granted a visa. Mehdi Mohammad Nabi, the team manager of the men's first team. Hidayat Mombini, the secretary general of the Iranian FA. Mohsen Motamed Kia, media manager of the Iranian FA. Mehdi Kharrati, head of department of all teams at the Iranian FA. Masoud Ardeshir, executive member of the security team at the Iranian FA. Mehdi Malikabad, head of security of the national team. 2 match analysts, which have nothing to do with anything. They're part of the backroom staff to help analyze the games. Opponents, Soroush Salmazi, Mehpuya Asadi. Then you have Reza Javedan, team coordinator, part of the logistics team. Ali Afzal, international affairs team, Iranian FA. Omid Jamali, head of international affairs at the Iranian FA. Siamak Gelichkani, Iranian FA media team.
Do they give reasons why these people were rejected?
Nothing official given, but the players and most of the staff were. And I mean, let's remember, Marco Rubio had said what he did, that, they're welcome, the athletes are welcome, but we're not going to let them, to quote, sneak in terrorists.
What the hell was that comment?
I mean,
what was that? Just like, is that something that has ever happened? Has it ever happened before in history that a football team sneaks a terrorist or spy, and maybe sometime in the Cold War, but it doesn't seem like a great cover for, like, maybe I'm trying to think, like, maybe it doesn't seem like a great cover to insert a spy operation, given the amount of attention. I know the U.S. used to insert spies into their jazz tours. They would do these jazz tours around the world with like Louis Armstrong and so on, and there would be like some CIA operative in the team, and they would use that to like overthrow the government of Zaire or something like. I'm not making this up, but that is. I would imagine with the amount of scrutiny on a football team, amount of fans, the photographers, the journalists, it would not be a great way to sneak a spy or terrorist into a country.
Look. Let's just be honest here. There is zero chance that no one's going to be a spy or a terrorist into, like, Iran doesn't even want to participate and play in the United States, much less try to, I don't know what they think they're going to do. It's childish. This administration lies like, every time they open their mouth. It's just nonsense and talking points, and everybody knows it. Nobody takes them seriously. It's just, all they have got is
there's some people who take them seriously. Nonsense. There's some people in the diaspora, for example, who are calling it, and let's talk about that just a little bit. Just very briefly, this idea that this is the IRGC's team, it's not Iran's team, it has nothing to do with Iran. That is kind of unprecedented. I remember, like, during the Khatami era, when the Team Melli was playing in the U.S. This is not the first time that the Iranian football club has played in the U.S.
I think if I remember, they didn't play in the U.S. It was 98 in the World Cup in France, where they played the United States and beat them 2-1.
Right, but there was like a lot of support. You're right, you're absolutely right. But there was a lot of support for the Iranian team among the diaspora.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, but the thing is, I don't think that this diaspora particularly is representative, this particular fraction of the diaspora is representative of anyone else other than
they're just
their
loud and well-financed. Yeah.
Loud, well-financed, rude, and can barely, are not civilized people that you wish to have in a room that is furnished. I'd rather keep animals indoors than most of these people.
Yeah.
They're not domesticated, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, it was clear that, to get back to the question, I mean, so after we reached a point where, they sorted out where Iran is going to stay and the visas were not given to these people, Iran has been furious because, today, the captain of the team issued statements saying, look, we're being they're not being given the same chances as everyone else to compete, as other teams are being to compete, because no one else, you've
They don't
taken
have the
away
same conditions. Yeah.
Yeah, the same conditions. And FIFA has to act based on that. And I mean, it's Ehsan Haj Safi, the captain today, says that, we're fully, he urged FIFA to address the visa issue. And he also said that we're capable of advancing. But more importantly, the president of the AIPS, the International Sports Journalism Association, the oldest in the world, wrote an open letter to FIFA and to the United States, telling them that the behavior of the United States immigration and authorities towards journalists, African and Iranian journalists, with regards to visa, is, quote, unacceptable. And I mean, so this just goes across the board. The thing is, I would say they are embarrassing themselves, but they have no shame, this administration.
You'd have to have some conscience to be embarrassed. Let me ask you this. The going back and forth, is that going to be a problem? Like, I've had hassle. I'm the guy who's terrified as a foreign correspondent. That's always the moment of most friction, is crossing a border. Is that going to be a hassle for these guys? Every morning they're going to get up at 5 a.m, get on a plane, or I don't know, maybe get on a bus?
No. What's going to happen is basically that, they've confirmed, Iran, that they're going to go the day before the game. They're going to travel to the venue. So for the 2 games in Los Angeles, they're going 2 days. They're going 1 day before, they said, to Los Angeles, because it's FIFA protocol to allow teams to inspect the grounds, to do a press conference before the games with the player and the coach and so on. So they have multiple entry visas. So they will go in.
But that doesn't mean anything. Multiple entry visa, you still have to show up at the passport control counter.
Exactly, but I just wanted to clarify that they're not going to come on the same day.
Oh, that's good.
And when they go to Seattle, they're going to be there 2 days in advance, and they've already confirmed this, and it's part of the FIFA tournament protocol.
And so they will sleep in the United States. They will stay at a nice hotel or something. Yeah,
exactly. And they will fly back after the games immediately, most likely, to their base camp. But they will stay 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 nights in the United States. The question is, I mean, obviously they're trying to keep their whereabouts under wraps because of this particular sliver of the so-called Iranian diaspora, who have been loud and essentially issuing threats online on which hotel they're staying and so on and so forth.
Nima, with regard to the theory that this is all out of the terror that the Trump administration has, that it will face Iran in a second round match. Let's not start with that. Let me start with this.
Okay.
I'm going to delete that part. I want to ask you about this round of 4, to talk a little bit more about football.
Okay.
From what I'm hearing, that Iran is facing the weakest round of 4 that it has faced in recent years in terms of the World Cup, and that it has maybe the best chance it has had in years to advance to the second round. What do you think of that?
I think I think when it comes to the chance for the first time ever to qualify from the group and reach the knockout stages of the World Cup, I think this is Iran's best chance. New Zealand are not an unbeatable team. Belgium are the favourites of the group, but they're not what they once were. But, they'll probably turn up and, want to Kevin De Bruyne and Romelu Lukaku and these guys. This is the last chance they have to play at a World Cup, so they'll probably want to do really well. That's going to be a tall order for Iran to try to win or draw Belgium. But they do have chances against Egypt, who are an African superpower, of course, but with an aging Mohamed Salah, who, will want to do something good there. So the key will be to beat New Zealand and draw one of the 2 games against Egypt and or Belgium, because 4 points will definitely get you to the knockout stages. As to the knockout stages, the draw has been like this, that if Iran finishes second in their group and the United States finishes second in their group, then the United States and Iran will face each other in the knockout stages, in the first round of the knockout stages in Houston, Texas.
On July 3rd.
Yeah.
And so that's, do you think that there's, I mean, this is speculation and you'd have to get inside Marco Rubio's head or something like that. I doubt Donald Trump thinks that kind of chess, but Marco Rubio, obviously he's from Latin America. He has Latin American roots. He knows the importance of football and so on. But do you think that there is this fear that could happen, and that, on July 3rd, 2026, the day before the big celebration of the 250th anniversary of the United States of America, the United States loses to Iran in the World Cup?
I don't even, I'm trying to survive the next couple of weeks, much less try to even think about what happens if that were to happen. I mean, that would be very, very, security has to be, for me, it's also an issue of security as well. I really hope nobody comes, that nobody's hurt, not just when it comes to this game, but generally this tournament is so ill prepared. It comes across so poorly prepared and so poorly organized on behalf of the United States that I wonder how this is
my
going to
country
go.
is I'm American. It's really becoming a failed state. It's really sad.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of
It really is.
infrastructure and so on.
Yeah.
They're just pouring all the money into data centers and then or stealing it and giving it to billionaires. So yes, the treatment of Iran by the United States, the treatment of the team. What recourse does Iran have? They can send angry letters and so on, but is there any legal mechanism that they could pursue?
Well, there is a protocol in place where they've already started talking to FIFA and telling them this is unacceptable. You need to fix this. We have to been given the same conditions as everyone else to prepare for these games. Otherwise, it's a violation of our rights.
And so, what can they do about that?
Well, they can. But they're doing what they're doing, and that is putting pressure on FIFA, and demanding that FIFA, but there is still time because everyone has been granted visas to go to Mexico, so they're all going to be together in Mexico in Tijuana. The issue is whether or not certain members can enter into the United States ahead of the games, before and after. That's what they're trying to resolve now. And there is ongoing contacts with FIFA to put pressure on FIFA to sort something out. That, okay, if the two heads of security can't enter, we need to have other people that we trust that can take over that job, at least for the next 2 days. Stuff like that.
I mean, what I'm asking is if these conditions do not stay the same, is there I read something about a court of arbitration of sport, a few international bodies where these things are apparently could be dealt with. Is that a possibility for Iran?
No, I don't see how they can file and get a verdict or
in time at least.
Yeah, at least in time. I think this is something that's going to be afterwards, that they can probably drag them to court and say our rights were violated under so on and so forth. And that could probably happen if this turns into a proper circus, which it could, because lest we forget, and we shouldn't, long before the draw for the games were made, it was decided locally by Seattle, the city, that game that they hosted on that day was going to be the Pride game. And so the draw, as it turned out, was Iran against Egypt, two Muslim majority countries. And they were angry about that. So we don't want to have anything to do with this. So there is that kind of element of it as well. And FIFA said, listen, this has got nothing to do with us. That's the city's decision. No one's going to kind of force you to do anything. But there is this constant pressure and tension, and that anything can go south and pear-shaped at any moment.
Yeah. Nima, do you have any insight into how this is affecting the team, the players? They look like young guys. I mean, I look at these guys, and I haven't been following this iteration of Team Melli, but you look at them, they're young, handsome, spoiled, obviously. They're just, they're sports stars, and they live the life of sports stars, fast cars, fun, etc., good living, and so on. They don't seem very affected when you see them in the footage and so on. Are they properly shielded from these kinds of pressures, which is the job of the team staff?
Well, to be honest with you, this particular generation, and Iran is sending its oldest squad ever. It's a very experienced squad. They've done most of them have played 3 or 4 World Cups already. This will be the 4th one. But quite rightly, as you say, these are superstar, sports stars, athletes with that lifestyle that comes with it. But unfortunately, this national team has been very politicized from people outside, and that has impacted them in the past. Now, and also you have very open political disagreements within the squad.
Wow.
There are people, there are players. There was a player, Sardar Azmoun, who was, in my opinion, correctly was not called up, because what he did was in January of 2025, he signed a contract with a club in the United Arab Emirates, which is perfectly fine. And when he signed for that club, he met with one of the leadership of that family dictatorship. And he posted it on his social media on Instagram. That was January of 2025. After the war broke out, in the aftermath of the Minab bombing, for no reason whatsoever, he reshared that post again. Yeah. Which is the dumbest thing you can ever do. There was nobody's asked him to do it, but if you know anything about Sardar Azmoun, you know that responsible, mature, intelligent behavior and is not his strength suit. He's a little bit like oil and water when it comes to him. He's a very spoilt brat and always has been.
Isn't that part of the course though? Is for these guys that they are, they're living in the nicest hotels?
Yeah, but he's the only one who did that.
Did that,
and
something
there are other
that dumb.
yeah, nobody else did that. Even players that live and apply their trade in the UAE didn't say anything.
Yeah.
They just did not say anything, which is
How many of
the
the
easiest.
players work for foreign teams right now?
A lot of them. I don't know the exact number. I don't have it in my head, but most of them play outside. I mean, Mehdi Taremi, who's the biggest player, the biggest name. He plays in Olympiacos in Athens in Greece. He's the biggest name. Hambash as well. I mean, there's lots of them who play.
Yeah.
Most of them play outside of Iran, and so they're very experienced players, and this is Iran's golden generation. But of course, there's lots of them who play in Iran as well. The point I want to make here is it's important to remember that this team has unfortunately been very politicized, and you have people with varying, who have in these nightly demonstrations in Tehran in support of Iran during this war. You've had lots of people, members of this team, come out and declare their support for the Iranian armed forces, for the Iranian people. Many of them have. You have many who haven't. So there are these differences of opinion.
Splits.
But I wouldn't say that there's a splits within the team, because this is a group of players who've known each other for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And they've played with each other, and they understand that we need to kind of put that aside, and the country's under war. And regardless of our political opinions, we have to kind of unite
and represent
give our people. And give our people, and represent and make the people happy, which is what they all want to do.
Yeah. So have you noticed any, I mean, like, if I may ask you to speculate, do you think that this will affect their performances, this pressure, this stress? And also, I guess I got to ask this, I mean, there's none of these guys are under pressure. It's not going to be like the Asian volleyball team. They're not going to be under pressure to defect, because if they wanted to defect, so to speak, they could have at any time. These are rock stars in their own little world.
I mean,
but is there any pressure from the regime on these guys to do something?
Listen, when it comes to that last thing, I saw someone was replied to me on Twitter, and I usually try to stay away from engaging with stupidity, and that platform is rife with it, but I had to respond to it. I was like, 26 millionaires, and they are multi-millionaires with millions of social media followers, with superstar rock star lifestyles, defect to where? Defect from Greece, Athens to Frog Bowls, Arkansas? What are we talking about? Go where? Defect. The 1980s are over, dude. Like, it's not. The Cold War is over. Like, defect where? They are superstar lifestyle millionaire sports
or
stars.
even like the Niavaron, like a palace in Niavaron, and regular trips to the Maldives. What, I'm going to go live in, some rotting city and get carjacked by some, gangsters in south side of Chicago? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, or Philadelphia or LA or what are you talking about? They're rich, famous little demigods who run around, have a fantastic lifestyle. Defect to where? Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's this vision. It's like some people still live in the world of a Rocky movie, like Rocky 1 to 4. Like, it's like the Cold War is over, dude. The 80s are over. Even Sylvester Stallone has moved on. So should you. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's childish. But to answer your first question, I forgot your first question.
It was a good question about, like, have you seen any evidence that these guys that the stress is getting to them?
Yeah, this is a really important point, and I'm glad you asked this. 4 years ago in Qatar, during the height of that whole thing that happened, the woman life freedom thing, in the midst of that, they were under pressure. They were under immense pressure, and you could tell them, the very first game against England, they were mentally not there. Then the coach, Carlos Queiroz, rallied around and united them and said, listen, you're football players. And one of the players, who was Sardar Azmoun, who was making political statements on Instagram, Carlos Queiroz yelled at him in front of the whole team and said, you want to be a politician, you do it on your own time. We're a football player. We're here to play football. You need to focus. And so did, so he that's why, they went out against Wales and they delivered that unbelievable performance, which is Iran's best performance at a World Cup, and they won deservedly 2-0. And so there was, they have that experience with them. This is different because then they were far more divided. The pressure from outside was far more divided.
It was a domestic political civil strife. This is
exactly.
This is like this might even bring them together more.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where it is that, the divisions, and also, we're 4 years down the road. We all know that, what happened there was not perhaps the way it was portrayed in the Western media, that there were other interests in play as well. And the entire lie surrounding that and the lies surrounding everything that happened after the destabilization attempts by the US administration, something that Scott Bessent even admitted to doing, that they created a currency shortage to tank the Iranian economy, with protests that followed. And then since then, we've had the Trump administration and the Mossad and saying that they basically flooded
were
Iran
on the
with
streets.
arms.
Yeah,
They were on the streets. So I mean, we know how these people operate. That, you can, what was it? The famous, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people. Yeah, if you can't fool all the people all the time. Everybody knows this now. Yes, there are internal divisions and strifes, but Iranians do not want foreign interference. They don't want Israeli bombs, American bombs dropped on their heads and killing their children, regardless of the disagreements they have, which is the most logical conclusion to anyone when you hear that.
Yeah.
So
this might bring them together. Yeah.
Yeah, this is very much so a moment where they can, and also it's their last chance at the World Cup. It's a very experienced squad. Yeah. So they will go to this World Cup and want to write history, in the sense that they will want to go to the knockout stages. Do that for the first time in Iranian football history.
Nima, thank you so much. This is Nima Tavallaei. He is a Sweden-based Iranian sports journalist focused on the Iranian national team and Italian football as soccer. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Pleasure's mine. Good to be with you.
Again, this is Borzu Deragahi. This is my podcast. It's called Badlands. You can subscribe at borzu.substack.com. I'm also available on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and on YouTube.